Path of Exile 2 has been out for almost a week now. As of writing and recording this, who knows when I'll actually upload it. So I decided to put my thoughts on the game into a list of things that I like, things that I dislike, and things that I'm not so sure about. First, the things I like. I'll start with the visuals. I love how the game looks. Whenever I see a new area, I think it looks amazing. The boss designs are all great, and the skills look so good that I already have 3 characters just to look at more skills. Another thing I like is the story. I'm a huge fan of the PoE 1 story, and all the references, plus the reintroduction of Sin, even though it really wasn't that much of a twist, got me really excited for the remaining 3 acts to learn more about the world. Also, while I'm talking about the lore, I'm going to ramble about it a bit, just a couple things I've noticed. And this might take a while, might not, but it might, so, strap in. I had somehow gotten it into my head that PoE 2 was going to be a prequel. Does it make any sense? No. Was there any reason for me to believe this? No. Did GGG say it took place about 20 years after the acts in PoE 1 and I just kind of hoped it was to fake us all out? Yes, I wanted it to be true. I wanted a surprise prequel. Now, I still don't know a ton about the lore in PoE 2 as I like to wait until I'm done with the League before diving deep into it, but here's some stuff I do know. We travel back in time to 400 BIC, which is before Imperialis Conceptus. That's when the Eternal Empire decided to just name all of time after themselves, which means the game is definitely set after that year. We also learn early on in Act 1 that the Eternal Empire has fallen, and since the Cataclysm, which ended the Eternal Empire, happened in 1336, that actually gives us a new earliest year. Now, Path of Exile 1 starts with being exiled by Dominus in the year 1600, which means that we have nearly 300 years, 264, for my half-baked idea of this game potentially being a prequel to still be correct. Except we don't. PoE 2 being post-Cataclysm means that it is also post-Malachi and the creation of the Rapture device. Now, why does that mean it can't be a prequel? Because the Rapture device was created by Malachi to, first and foremost, get him to the heart of the beast and start the Cataclysm, which, in 1336, ended the Eternal Empire. This means that, as of 1336, the beast is guaranteed to be in the mines in Highgate, as that is where Malachi and Vol went with the Rapture device, along with Diala, to get Malachi in there. It's not exactly what Vol thought was going to happen, but that's what happened. This is for sure the beast that we kill in Act 4 of PoE 1, because, well, we go to Highgate, and the beast is in there, which means that the beast was definitely in there as of 1336, and we are exiled in PoE 1 in 1600, which kind of covers that entire 260 some odd year span, which means that PoE 2's new beast from the seed must be post PoE 1. All this is to say that the idea didn't really make that much sense in the first place, but I mean, like, come on. How cool would it have been for this game to be a surprise prequel? Anyway, back to the list. I really like that the gameplay is slower. Combo mechanics with the new charges, the interactions between skills allowing for a setup, finisher playstyle, leads to very satisfying combat, and lets you see more of the skills, which I previously talked about loving, on one build. In a similar vein is the skill gems. The new skill gem system is, to me, a large improvement. I much prefer the new leveling of gems being itemized, and support gems not leveling up and only adding a small stat requirement instead of their own large stat requirements allows for less stat pressure just so you can add one support gem, which helps a lot when making builds. The new socket system is also a large improvement, as you don't have to sunk cost 3,000 fusings into a bow when you could have just used the bench for half of that, and then you end up replacing it 2 hours later when you hit a lucky essence and have to redo this whole thing. It's also nice that it doesn't lead to too much power, as you can only use one of each support gem, with the exception of one Ascendancy node for the Gemling Legionnaire. Lastly, I really like that they removed utility flasks. I'm not the biggest fan of charms, more on that later, but utility flasks were in my eyes just way too strong. And fuck Mageblood. I hate that belt, and I will not explain why. Okay, so now on to the things that I'm not a huge fan of. First of all, maps are just too big. I'm talking about endgame maps, and particularly the less linear ones. Their size can just lead to so much backtracking because you missed a single rare mob in a tiny little offshoot at the start. They are addressing this in a patch soon, so it might not be an issue by the time this is uploaded, but it still is an issue as I write and now record this. Another problem is the targeting. This is most egregious in the Zalmarath fight in Act 2, where I ended up shooting projectiles at absolutely nothing because its arm was in the air, and with the Monk, where he will leap into the center of a group of enemies instead of hitting the bell directly in front of him. But it's gotten me killed plenty of times, and I am very tiltable, so it gets a place on the list. So I just got to this Colossus fight again with my third character, and I just closed the game because I fucking hate this fight so much. I'm thinking that targeting might not be the issue. I'm still going to leave that bit in the video, but I think it might be mostly this fight. I have been teleporting 30 feet in the air. It's like floating on nothing. I've been constantly getting hit by just, like, I don't even know if they're poor hitboxes or if it's my bad brain, but it feels bad. That's the point. The teleporting's the hard part. I've fallen off of the map like 3 times. Nothing happens. I just walk right back on, but I've fallen off of the map. So, like, don't get me wrong, the targeting's not great. I've also, like, this is currently on my Monk. Like, I've slammed down my bell on his chest, because where the fuck else would I ever want to target? And then just thrown all of my abilities directly at his hands, nowhere near the bell. So that fucking sucks. Like, the targeting is an issue, but I think that it's exacerbated in this fight because it's such a buggy fight. Anyway, I'm recording this at 1 in the morning because I didn't realize, what the fuck? It's 1 in the morning. Huh, I gotta go to sleep. Anyway, that was just my quick rant. I'm putting this in the video tomorrow, though. Or I guess later today. Small one next, but being unable to change your ascendancy is disappointing, especially for things like Blood Mage, which at the time I've heard is more likely to kill you than to actually help you out. Again, relatively small, especially when they said they're open to changing this, but with how it is now, that's bad. This one is very personal to, like, me and how I play the game, but it's my list, so deal with it. My builds suck. Like, I'm not following any guides, I have no one to blame but myself, but whether it's my sorceress dying because the wind blew the wrong direction, or my ranger taking 30 minutes to kill Charmander the Abomination after multiple failed attempts, or running out of bad things to say about the game, so I'm just grasping at straws. My builds suck. I wanted 5 things for each category, good, bad, okay, and that was only 4, so fuck Mana Siphon rares. I hate when one of those shows up. Good enough for a whole spot on the list, right? Hey, it's me again. I guess it's always been me, but I'm recording this at a separate time than recording most of this stuff. It's another thing that I remembered. Proximal tangibility. Completely forgot about that rare mod somehow. I guess I just hadn't encountered it in a while. I was just, I wrote down Mana Siphon as a rare mod that I hated. I was looking for more things, and then I kept playing. And after recording all that, I was like, oh, proximal tangibility. I hate it. I hate it so much. Now for stuff that isn't necessarily bad, but also isn't good. Things that wouldn't feel quite right in either of the previous categories. First is build diversity. There will be 36 ascendancies in the game when it fully releases, but for now there are only 12. And each one feels like it only has 1 or 2 skill combos that it can use to really be as powerful as it can be. And don't get me wrong, this sounds bad, but it has a guaranteed solution with the remaining 24 ascendancies that aren't in the game yet, and also, you can just play weaker builds. I mean, that's what I've been doing. Next is crafting. I haven't spent a ton of time crafting, mostly just buying rares from vendors, but I do like that crafting's a lot simpler. There just aren't as many League mechanics stacked on top of League mechanics, so the experience is less muddled. Though, this does lead to a lot of crafting just being essence, slam, greater essence, slam, slam, slam. And if you've got like one bad mod, you maybe hope for a good chaos orb. A little bit disappointing, but it'll likely get better as more content is added to the game. Oh, also, I forgot about omens, but in my defense, I don't run ritual, so I haven't seen any of them. Alright, there are a few bugs that cause some pretty significant issues, but I didn't want to put bugs on the bad list because it's early access. Blood Mage being kind of crangled, was clearly not intentional, so I didn't want to hold it against the game too much, but obviously it's not good. So I put it on the okay list, even though okay is not a great way to describe it. Another thing's the difficulty. I really like that PoE 2 is just kind of hard, but some of the ways that it's hard, namely getting, hit stunned in a corner until you die, don't feel great. Now, as I've said before, my builds are bad, so it's hard to really objectively talk about the difficulty, like, for example, how hard a boss is when it takes me twice as long as it should to kill, or when I get one shot by a basic attack. So overall, I'd say the difficulty is good, but it might need some tuning. However, that tuning might just be players discovering more things about the game, understanding it better, being able to play better. Last is charms. I mentioned earlier that I hate utility flasks in Mageblood, and as a solution, charms, well, they exist. The concept is great. It provides some of the utility of old flasks, but without obscene player power. The execution, however, is where I find charms lacking. This might just be me, but I cannot tell when a charm is activated. And even worse, I can't tell when a charm is full on charges, so it's ready to be activated. With something like a freeze or a stun charm, where not having it available when you think you do could lead to being unable to act in the middle of a pack of mobs, this is a huge problem. Also, the extra charm slot being a belt modifier. Why not just make the number of slots increase with item level? All this does is make the already very random crafting even worse for belts, because there's no settle mod for charm slots. You can't say, oh well, it's not lightning res, but at least it's fire res, so I can just socket different runes. No. You have to roll +2 charm slots on your belt, or lose out on some great utility. Still though, better than utility flasks, so I can't really call it bad, can I? I mean, okay, yeah, I can. Like, there's nothing stopping me, but I won't. I won't call it bad. I'll call it okay. That's my list. Didn't really have a script, per se, for this one, except for the intro and the outro. Just notes that I was adding to as I played. Eventually I had about 5 things for each category, so the video format came to be. This list is by no means comprehensive. I mean, mana siphon rares, really, but I haven't done a ton of endgame yet. My builds aren't good enough for that. And it's a new release, so there's definitely a bit of rose-tinted glasses hiding some of the issues and propping up some of the things I like. And chances are, if there's something else you don't like or do like about the game as it is now, someone agrees with you. It might even be me. So let me know. Agree? Disagree? Thinking of something that I didn't even bring up? All I ask is that you stay civil. If you disagree with someone, explain why. Don't attack them. Especially if it's me, please.